In 2007, underwater archaeologist Dr. Mark Hawley is on a mission in Lake Michigan's Grand Traverse Bay. He's using sonar to scan the lake bed, looking for a ship that sunk years ago but has yet to be found.
But as Dr. Hawley looks at the sonar readings, he sees something huge, something that's definitely not a shipwreck.
So Dr. Hawley puts on his scuba gear, he dives down to the bottom, and what he finds is incredibly strange.
It's a perfectly straight line of boulders, and it looks man-made.
It's just this long, almost ominous formation in otherwise flat sand. So he decides he's going to follow the line and see where it leads him.
And eventually it leads to another feature that's a circle of stones. And there's a big steep drop-off right at the end of that circle.
The circular stone pattern is a lot like another famous rock structure.
When you look at pictures of this, it almost looks like mini Stonehenge. But the rocks are about 2 feet high.
News of what comes to be known as Lake Michigan Stonehenge makes a splash around the world.
The mini Stonehenge might be 10,000 years old, just 5,000 years older than Stonehenge in England.
It's of course possible that these structures did have some kind of religious or spiritual significance, not unlike what many people propose for Stonehenge.
Hawley, on the other hand, thinks that the media has this all wrong, because the main feature here is not the stone circles, but this mile-long line of stones.
While Hawley continues to rack his brain on what this could be for, another discovery in a different Great Lake sheds new light on this mystery.
In 2009, a University of Michigan anthropologist named John O'Shea publishes a paper about some of the research he's been conducting in Lake Huron. It turns out that he has discovered there similar structures to those found in Lake Michigan.
O'Shea's conclusion was that these features are prehistoric hunting structures that are known as drivelines.
Drivelines were rock formations created by native caribou hunters in North America thousands of years ago.
Caribou have an unusual trait. They instinctively follow linear formations or structures.
Caribou would be herded toward the drivelines and brought all the way to the circular formation. There, hunters would hide behind the boulders.
Having a steep drop-off at the end also would help hunters to channel the animals into a certain area where then humans could hunt them really effectively.
Hawley is confident that this structure is in fact a driveline, but there's still a lot to be learned from the site.
Maybe there are many more of these sites out there just sitting under the water, waiting for us to discover them.
It's 2023, and a British company called Energean is scanning the seafloor of the Mediterranean looking for new oil and gas fields.
The ship is 55 miles off the coast of Israel. They're using a robotic vehicle to search a mile below the sea.
The robot sends back photos of the ocean floor, which are pretty mundane. But then suddenly, engineers spot something very strange and intriguing.
They see a large mound on the seafloor that appears to be full of smaller objects.
Sticking out of the mound are what look almost like urns, each a couple of feet tall. They are piled on top of each other, covered with sand.
They call the Israeli Antiquities Authority to come check out what they find.
Experts from the IAA look at the images, and they conclude that there are hundreds of these urns, and they must have been part of the cargo from a shipwreck.
As they do more analysis, it does look like there's a ship below this cargo, and it's about 40 feet long.
They quickly try to find a way to recover some of the urns and find out how old they are, so maybe they could understand what the ship is and where it's from. So the IAA works with the company to send down a robotic vehicle that is skilled in handling fragile objects.
They successfully bring up a couple of these urns, and there's some material that's inside of them that's still preserved.
Researchers suspect the urns contained oil, agricultural products, or wine. Unfortunately, the tests are inconclusive.
But they're able to quickly date the urns themselves. And they conclude that they are 3,300 years old.
That makes this the world's oldest shipwreck ever discovered in deep water, and suggests ancient mariners had more advanced navigation technology than we ever believed.
Whoever was sailing it, they were not using land to navigate. They had to probably use the sun and the stars. Plus, this ship was sailing in the middle of the Mediterranean. It's 1 million square miles, and the ocean can get extremely rough.
It's incredible to think that 3,000 years ago, a ship could be constructed that could handle these rough seas.
If they're able to successfully explore the site, it could revolutionize our understanding of navigation thousands of years ago.
Yonaguni Island is the westernmost island of Japan. And scuba divers flock there because it's one of the few places where you can regularly see hammerhead sharks.
In 1986, a local diver named Kihachiro Aratake is out one day diving along the coast when he sees something incredible.
Aratake is about 15 feet underwater when he encounters a rock structure. And when he looks closer, it looks like this is part of a much larger formation that stretches all the way down to the seafloor.
He follows it down, and he really can't believe what he's seeing.
Spread out before Aratake is a whole group of formations. The largest structure is almost 80 feet tall and the size of a football field.
This particular structure seems to have a form that looks very much like a stepped pyramid, similar to what we see with the civilizations like the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca.
Aratake shares his discovery with a marine geologist named Masaaki Kimura.
When Kimura dives the site, he is also struck. It looks man-made. The geometric formations, the clean lines, the flat surfaces, the right angles.
Kimura calls the structure the Yonaguni Monument and thinks it could be the remnants of a lost civilization.
We've, of course, all heard of Atlantis, but there is another mythical lost city. This one in the Pacific, the Kingdom of Mu.
The whole city supposedly sank into the ocean following a natural disaster, but nobody knows exactly where it was.
There's a lot of earthquakes in the area, so it's not that hard to think of an earthquake sinking an ancient city.
In fact, in April of 1771, an earthquake triggered one of the largest tsunamis in history, which struck the coast of Yonaguni.
This makes Kimura think that maybe these ruins are the result from some other similar catastrophe.
Others in the scientific community challenge Kimura's ideas. They point out that sandstone, which is common in this area, tends to break off on its own into straight lines and right angles, especially in areas like this with a lot of tectonic activity.
Then in 2024, a controversial new theory is proposed, centering on something called crypto-terrestrials.
A group of researchers suggests that structures like the one off of the coast of Yonaguni could have been built by intelligent, non-human beings that are hiding here on Earth, what are called crypto-terrestrials.
Despite this theory, Masaaki Kimura isn't buying it.
But until excavations are done and evidence is offered, speculation about Yonaguni and similar structures is likely to continue.
Back
Back in 1938, a fishing boat captain in South Africa invites a friend to check out his catch. What she finds ends up shocking scientists everywhere.
It's just before Christmas in 1938 in East London, South Africa, and a woman named Marjorie Courtney Latimer is the curator of a small natural history museum. She is with a friend of hers that is a commercial fisherman, and she often will go through his hall to find cool and unique animal specimens to display in her museum.
She sticks her hands in these layers of these slimy sea creatures, and she starts to dig around when something catches her eye. It's this 5-foot-long, bright blue fish with these 4 fins that kind of look like arms.
The fisherman with 30 years of professional fishing experience cannot identify this fish.
Marjorie is also baffled, but determined to figure out what type of species this unusual creature is.
She wants to show this specimen to a fish expert that she knows. However, he's gone for the holiday and won't return for weeks.
Exposure to the sun is already starting to change the color of the fish from blue to gray, and she's becoming really eager to preserve it. So she calls a local taxidermist. This is the only way to save it.
8 weeks later, the fish expert returns and is shocked by what he sees.
That fish actually turns out to be a known species. It's called a coelacanth. And it was thought that this particular species had died out around 65 million years ago, right alongside the dinosaurs.
While this coelacanth is the first found, it's far from the last. Over the next several decades, experts uncover and study more than 300 in the wild, and they learn something remarkable.
Scientists eventually realized that they had a unique way of locomoting in the ocean. Instead of swimming with primarily tail motion, as most bony fish do today, the coelacanth swims using some paddling of its front and back legs, almost as though it's sort of wading or walking through the water.
Some scientists speculate that coelacanth is the ancestor to the first vertebrates to crawl out of the water, thus the ancestors of modern land animals.
And actually, coelacanths are genetically linked with all other tetrapods. So anything in the horse family, anything in the feline family, and yes, even us.
To this day, Marjorie Courtney Latimer's discovery is known as the zoological find of the century.
And what's even more amazing is that had it not been for Marjorie's determination to preserve and to save this fish, it is possible that it could have ended up on somebody's table for Christmas dinner in 1938.
Rediscovering an ancient species is truly incredible, but what if you found a sea monster that's not supposed to exist and is actually real?
As dawn breaks on a small Danish village, down the beach, the crowd has gathered around something that has been washed up overnight. A strange creature lies dead on the sand.
It's massive. It has sort of an amorphous blob of a body, 2 giant cloudy eyes, a bony beak that resembles that of a bird, and it has 10 long arms with openings that resemble mouths with hooked, sharp teeth.
To the villagers, this looks like a sea monster. And to some, it looks like a specific monster, the mythical Kraken.
According to legend, the Kraken is an enormous multi-armed beast that has terrorized the ocean for centuries. It was infamous for smashing boats to pieces and dragging sailors to a watery grave.
Kraken or not, the villagers know that this massive carcass is stinking up the beach. A few fishermen cut off some pieces to use as bait, and they bury the rest.
But someone in the village takes a souvenir, its beak.
3 years later, the beak is gifted to a Norwegian scientist, Japetus Steenstrup. He is fully aware of the stories about the bloodthirsty Kraken.
So when Steenstrup gets his hands on what may be a piece of an actual Kraken, he realizes he may have the holy grail of maritime mysteries in his hands.
He immediately notices the similarity between the beak he's received and the beak of another animal, a squid. Squids use their beaks to pulverize their prey before they eat them.
The description of the sea monster from the beach also reminds Steenstrup of squids. Both have unusually large eyes and 10 limbs in total.
And in certain species, the suckers have small tooth-like hooks inside of them to create a better grip.
Steenstrup declares to the world that he's discovered a new genus of squid, Argyteuthis, the giant squid. This takes the myth of the Kraken and it moves it into the reality of science.
But does one beak and a secondhand story really prove the existence of a giant killer squid? Debate in the scientific community continues until 1873.
In Portugal Bay, Newfoundland, 2 men and a boy are out on a fishing boat when they spy something floating in the water, this sort of large, unidentifiable mass. So they use a pole with a hook on it to pull the object closer.
As the point of the hook pierces the creature, it roars to life, charges the boat, and slings a massive tentacle over the side.
The young member of the fishing crew grabs their tackle axe and cuts off part of the tentacle, after which the creature pulls back into the sea.
The men then bring this 19-foot-long tentacle back to the mainland, and they give it to a local reverend who has an interest in biology.
Then, 1 month later, another local fishing boat finds an entire giant squid tangled in its nets. The Reverend buys the squid for $10 and documents the discovery in a photograph.
This is the first ever complete specimen of the giant squid recovered from nature. It's evidence that the mythical Kraken may indeed be real.
And it makes you wonder, what other mythical creatures actually exist in the depths of the briny deep?
Pavel Efimov is trudging along the banks of an icy river in Yakutia, Siberia, scouring for mammoth ivory. He's waited until midsummer to begin his search because it's a little bit easier to dig into the ground.
It's hard work in a harsh environment, but it's got its rewards. A single tusk can fetch up to $20,000, so just a couple can have Efimov set up for years.
On this day, he's not having any luck. So he decides, okay, I'm gonna abort and go home. But as he decides to leave, he sees what looks like a clump of fur sticking up out of the ice.
Efimov races over and starts digging. It's definitely not a tusk. It seems to be some sort of animal jaw, but its teeth are much smaller than a mammoth's.
He chips away at the ice and he discovers it's a giant severed head.
At first, it looks like a dog, but upon closer inspection, he realizes that it's a wolf's head. This head is incredibly well preserved, and it is gigantic.
The find reminds Efimov of a fearsome beast that went extinct 10,000 years ago. The direwolf.
At 6 feet long and 175 pounds, the direwolf was approximately the size of a man, but much more powerful. Its bite alone was strong enough to take down prey many times its size, like mastodons and bison.
So Efimov takes the head home with him, and he gets in contact with the Republic of Sakha Academy of Sciences.
Efimov hands over the head to a biologist who's stunned by what he sees.
When he measures the skull, it's 16 inches long, much bigger than any modern wolf head.
The fur is so well preserved that the scientist thinks that there is no way this thing is 10,000 years old. And so they send some samples away for carbon dating. It turns out he was right. It's not 10,000 years old. It's 40,000 years old.
While the time period still lines up with when direwolves roamed the Earth, none have ever been found in this area.
After a lot of testing, it turns out that this isn't the head of a direwolf, but it's a similar species of Pleistocene wolf that preyed on large animals.
It's the first remains found of a well-preserved, fully grown wolf from the Pleistocene era. And this ancient find shows us that this wolf was much bigger and much deadlier than previously thought.
It's one of America's most loved national parks, but underneath the beauty lies a killer, one that gets discovered from space.
In 1965, NASA begins a mission to map the surface of the Earth from space. They plan to use state-of-the-art cameras mounted on satellites, but to make sure the images they are getting are accurate, NASA decides to make a control set of pictures on the ground at Yellowstone.
They're making this map of Yellowstone so that they have a baseline, and the person in charge, his name is Bob Christensen.
Yellowstone has the ideal geology to do this because the park is just chock full of geysers and these natural pools, all of which can test the real accuracy of these cameras.
Because Christensen is also a geologist, the National Park Service also has him collect rock samples that are later carbon dated.
These rock samples reveal something strange.
It turns out that most of the rock in Yellowstone is made up of something called rhyolite, which only occurs when you have lava flowing or volcanic explosions. But there are no active volcanoes in Yellowstone.
Still, Christensen's data doesn't lie. The bulk of the park's geology is the result of several massive eruptions over the last 2 million years.
There are hundreds of unique geological features across the park. So Christensen's first thought is that these were the product of an ancient volcano chain that has long since gone dormant.
But when NASA's satellite mapping of the park is finally finished in 1972, Christensen is shocked by what the infrared pictures reveal.
What the images tell him is that the unique geological features of Yellowstone were not, as he thought, formed by an ancient chain of volcanoes, but by a single supervolcano.
Of the over 1,000 volcanoes we know of on Earth, only about 20 are supervolcanoes. And this is one of the biggest ever found.
The biggest of these eruptions took place 2 million years ago. This eruption launched as much as 600 cubic miles of red-hot lava and rocks into the air. This is an explosion 2,500 times bigger than the Mount St. Helens eruption.
Then, Christensen makes an even more startling discovery.
Even though it has been dormant for 500,000 years, lava still flows in this massive supervolcano underneath Yellowstone National Park.
And in 2022, scientists uncover even more alarming news.
A study published in the journal Science shows that lava chambers under the park are rapidly filling.
This, combined with the fact that Yellowstone has over 3,000 earthquakes a year, leads some to speculate that the supervolcano may be preparing to erupt once again.
If the next eruption is anything like the last one, it would spew enough debris into the sky to block out the sun in the western United States for decades, leading to widespread famine and economic collapse.
Considering the Yellowstone supervolcano has remained dormant for over 500,000 years, let us hope for another 500,000 at least.
You know the saying, curiosity killed a cat. Well, one curious diver completely ignores the warning when he comes across a strange underwater hole.
It's 1985, and a man named Henri Cosquer is exploring the waters of Cape Monjou south of Marseille. Around 100 feet down, he sees a hole in a cliffside, just big enough for him to swim into.
He swims into the hole, and he sees that it curves upwards into the darkness. And he realizes that the hole is the entrance to an underground tunnel that's over 200 feet long.
The farther he swims, the narrower the passage gets. It's also full of stalagmites, so one wrong move and he could end up trapped. And so he has to abandon his exploration.
Over the next few years, Cosquer keeps the tunnel a secret. But eventually, he realizes if he's going to explore deeper, there's safety in numbers.
In 1991, he returns with a few fellow divers. Cosquer leads them through the tunnel until they end up in a large cave. And that is when he notices a painting on the wall. And then another, and another, and the walls are covered in them.
Many of the images appear to be animals, including horses, penguins, and even a jellyfish.
Then Cosquer finds something truly astonishing.
He spots a handprint. Looks like it's been stenciled into the cave wall. Only one of the fingers is missing.
As they look closer, they begin to see loads of these mutilated hand images on the walls of the cave. So they take a bunch of photos and head for the surface.
But before Cosquer can share his discovery, 4 other divers find the cave.
These divers are totally under-equipped for such a dangerous dive. They have no spare tanks, no extra regulator, and no safety line. And they quickly run into trouble.
Their flippers begin to stir up some silt, which completely obscures their vision. They can't see each other, and they lose all sense of direction.
Tragically, 3 of the divers drown. So a spooked Cosquer hands over his photos of the cave to French authorities.
And they send a team of their Navy divers to now go and explore this cave. They begin to catalog the paintings on the wall, and they count a total of over 500 different cave paintings.
Carbon dating reveals that the oldest of the images dates back 27,000 years, and that people returned to the cave over and over again, adding to this art for over 14,000 years.
But it's the images of hands that get the most attention.
Scientists' first thought is that the hands were mutilated. But after the discovery of similar hand stencils in caves nearby, they postulate that it might be a type of visual code communication or some kind of very ornate picture language.
It turns out to be the oldest known example of written language ever found, by over 20,000 years.
Incredibly, researchers believe that the cave once held 4 or 5 times as many images as it does today. That is before rising sea levels washed them all away. Sadly, it's estimated that the imagery that still remains may be washed away within 14 years.
Now, a team of artists and scientists are working to recreate all of this art in a museum in Marseille in an attempt to preserve these amazing unearthed mysteries before they are lost forever.
Let's say you're part of a team working out in the forest. You're cutting down trees on what feels like a normal day. Then you accidentally find something incredible.
One of the team members, Kit Roger, he's wading through dense foliage. The team's getting ready for a large-scale operation.
Just as they're about to begin, Kit Roger spots something on the ground that definitely is not a tree.
He looks down, he sees an iron door.
Curious, he pries the door open and sees a small shaft leading down. He decides to investigate, and what he finds is a buried bunker.
The chamber is about 23 feet long, 10 feet wide. There's some broken timber bed frames, but really nothing else survives inside the structure. At the far end, though, there's an escape hatch.
He thinks he's found something special that's long been rumored to have been hidden in this area. One of the famous Churchill bunkers.
The Churchill bunkers were built as part of a secret operation during some of the darkest days of World War II.
Fearing that the Germans might conduct an invasion of some kind, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill creates a clandestine organization that he calls the Auxiliary Units.
Unofficially, they're known as Churchill's Secret Army.
This isn't some sort of an elite unit. These men are farmers and miners, but they bring one critical advantage to the scenario, and that is an intimate familiarity with the land.
The main purpose of these units is to act as a resistance force in case the Germans do invade.
This is an army designed to fight to the death as a last resort. Essentially, it's a suicide mission.
To give this force a chance against an invading army, they need the element of surprise.
So all across Britain, an estimated 500 of these Churchill bunkers were constructed in order to house this army.
Their locations are secret, and their entrances are disguised so they can't be seen from the air.
Fortunately, Churchill's last-ditch army is never called into service, and that's because of the fact that the Nazis do not invade the United Kingdom.
A few years later, when World War II comes to a close, Churchill's secret army is disbanded, and the bunkers are abandoned.
The locations of these bunkers have never been confirmed, and to date, just about 200 of them have been found.
Investigators are sent out to examine the underground position and compare it against other known Churchill bunkers. And what they discover is it is a perfect match. This is indeed a Churchill bunker.
The location of this newly discovered bunker still remains a secret to this day.
But who knows? If you're out and about wandering around the English countryside, you might stumble across one of the ones that has yet to be discovered.
Off the coast of Germany in the Bay of Gelting, the World Wildlife Fund drops a diver into the water to retrieve a missing net. As he gets closer, he notices that the net is hooked onto this odd-looking dark rock with these white specks on it.
Upon closer inspection, he realizes that the white specks are actually characters on what appears to be an old typewriter. Since an old typewriter is really out of place on the seafloor, he decides to pull it up.
Once they get the object out of the water and they take a close look at it, they realize this actually isn't a typewriter at all.
This strange discovery is a Nazi M3 Enigma cipher machine.
It's believed that cracking German naval Enigma alone ended the Second World War 1 year earlier than it would have ended otherwise.
How did this crucial piece of the Nazi war machine wind up at the bottom of a bay?
By the spring of 1945, the Allies had the upper hand against the faltering German forces. The end of the war in Europe is in sight.
Shortly before the Germans surrender in May 1945, the German High Command orders Operation Regenbogen, Operation Rainbow, by which they ordered both the U-boats and surface vessels to scuttle themselves, sink themselves, deliberately, so they could not be seized by the Allies after the war.
In Gelting Bay alone, around 50 U-boats are sent to the bottom, many of them carrying Enigma machines.
While over 40,000 Enigmas were made during the war, less than 300 remain. So the diver's find is potentially worth serious money.
Enigma machines have sold at auction from between $50,000 to $500,000.
But instead of selling the machine, the divers donate it.
The divers turn over the Enigma to researchers. Today, if you go to the Museum of Archaeology in Schleswig, you can see the machine on display. And it's kind of cool because it also serves as a reminder of the brain power that it took to defeat the Nazis. It's April 22nd, 1956, and a team of workers are looking for an underground phone cable in East Berlin.
It's been pouring rain for days. The ground is completely saturated, and the phone lines have gone down.
It's thought that this may be because of a short in a wire that's underground. And so a team of workers are dispatched to start digging for the faulty wire.
So it's 2 in the morning. These guys are out there with their shovels, and they're digging, and they're digging, and they're hoping to find cables so they can fix the problem. But they find something else.
They hit concrete that isn't supposed to be there.
The workers can't help but be curious, so they crack open a small hole and they look inside.
To their amazement, they find an underground room full of high-tech equipment. The workers notify their superiors, and when they investigate, they find that there's a tunnel connecting Communist East Berlin to American, British, and French-controlled West Berlin. By the time that the covert plan is uncovered, the CIA has already amassed 40,000 hours of recorded conversations, and they have compiled 1,750 intelligence reports based on those tapes.
This is a windfall of Soviet secrets for the West. It covers everything from troop movements to the names and identities of key players in the atomic and intelligence programs to the location of military bases throughout Europe.
5 years later, this story takes an unexpected turn.
In 1961, the British arrest one of their own intelligence agents, George Blake. As it turns out, he was a double agent who was feeding intelligence information to the Soviets for years.
While in custody, Blake confesses to having shared secrets about Operation Gold with the Soviets years before the tunnel was built.
So if the Soviets knew about the tunnel, why didn't they say something sooner?
The Soviets realized that if they were to expose the tunnel, they would lose their double agent Blake, because the leak would immediately be traced back to him.
He's providing the Communists in the Soviet Union a treasure trove of classified and top secret information. And so if they watch what they say, they're not going to tip their hand because they know that the Americans are listening.
But in 1956, the Soviets decide to use their find as leverage.
Now, Khrushchev, who's the premier of the Soviet Union at this time, has plans to visit the West. And he has this information in his back pocket. And he plans to use it to make a big splash in the Western press.
So the Soviets come up with this story about the bad cable to justify sending out a team to begin digging and thereby discover the secret tunnel. This cover story doesn't just preserve Blake's identity, it also gives Khrushchev exactly what he wanted, something to hold over the West's head.
In other words, this accidental find is not so accidental after all.
There never was any issue with the telephone wires. The Soviets sent these unsuspecting workers out knowing full well what it was that they would find.
The discovery was just a cover story in this Cold War chess match that pitted the East against the West.
It's 1974 in a small village in northwest China, and severe droughts are about to set off an alarming chain of events.
We have the small, sleepy town of Xi'an, China. People in this village are farmers and need water to grow their own food. But with no rain in sight, things are starting to get desperate, and they need to take action fast.
So the villagers come up with a plan to dig wells. By the third day of this project, they've made great progress. They're down about 15 feet.
Now, one of the workers, a man by the name of Yang Jifa, as he's digging, his shovel hits something hard. He's not exactly sure what it is at first. When he keeps digging it out, the broken head of a sculpture emerges.
Feeling he's discovered something important, Yang takes it back to the village, but everyone is terrified to touch it.
For the local people, finding the broken head of a statue points to things that aren't necessarily good. This could be sacrilegious, it could be something to do with the ancestors. At any rate, it's not the kind of thing you want sitting around your house.
Word of the mysterious sculpture spreads fast, so the government brings in a team to investigate. What they find next is astounding.
One by one, these large terracotta warrior statues are unearthed.
The men vary in height, uniform, and hairstyle depending on their rank. And the soldiers are armed with actual bronze weapons, with axes, crossbows, and spears. Some of them are even mounted on horses and chariots.
When the dust is settled from this excavation, archaeologists discover more than 8,000 of these terracotta statues.
This incredible treasure represents one of the rarest and most priceless archaeological finds of the modern age.
It's an amazing discovery that raises an obvious question. Why are the warriors buried here?
The village is actually close to some pretty sacred land. It's the site where China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, was laid to rest around 2,000 years ago.
It becomes clear to the research team that these statues were carved and then buried as an army to protect the emperor in his afterlife.
However, not everyone's excited about this find.
It is believed that to disturb this land could cause a series of epic misfortune for those who dig out these statues.
Soon their fears are realized when the government evicts all residents from their homes to make way for a museum dedicated to the Terracotta Army.
The villagers are forced to leave the only lives they'd ever known and are erased from the history of this discovery.
It destroys their lives and their livelihood, and then they have to start over with very few resources.
It's even worse for the men who make the initial find.
As years go on, several of the discoverers sink into really desperate poverty.
One of them gets a skin disease, and another one dies in great pain at home, but he never knows what's wrong with him.
And then, in 1997, racked with disease and having no money to pay for medicine, former digger Wang Puji waits until his family is out, places a rope around his neck, and hangs himself.
For the villagers who were evicted from their land to make way for this museum and who suffered such terrible fates as a result of it, to them, it seems like the dark curse that they feared really did come to pass.
While some people fear unleashing a curse by accident, others call on them deliberately.
In 1785, a farmer near Silchester, England, is plowing his field when he spots something shiny in the soil. He bends down and is shocked to see this large gold ring sticking out of the tracks.
It's a 10-sided faceted hoop with a square bezel that has the goddess Venus on it. It seems rather ancient and pretty ornate.
Both the hoop and the bezel have Latin inscriptions carved on them. And the translation reads, Senescienus, live in God.
The farmer sells the ring, and it's forgotten for decades, until a garden renovation in 1805.
The Bathurst family of Lydney Park in Gloucestershire are having their garden excavated. And then suddenly, as they dig, they discover they've hit a stone wall. Soon, to everyone's surprise, they unearth the ruins of a building along with votive artifacts on the grounds.
As they continue, they find out that this is a temple dedicated to the god known as Nodens. Nodens was a Celtic healing god in ancient Britain, and very little is known about this god. So this temple becomes a very important archaeological site.
Archaeologists take over the excavation of the temple site for the next 2 years, when another surprising find is made.
A lead tablet is discovered, and written on this tablet is a curse.
Curse tablet, or a defixio, is a common part of many ancient religions. It can actually be a positive, thanking a god for a kindness or a good fortune, or a demand for divine vengeance. And in this case, the writer of the tablet asks for revenge.
The translation reads, "For the god Nodens, Silvianus has lost a ring. Do not allow the thief Cincianus any good health until the ring is returned."
But it's not until 100 years later that someone actually starts to connect the dots. Renowned archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler.
In 1928, Wheeler examines the cursed tablet, and he remembers hearing the discovery of the ring with Cincianus inscribed on it. He thinks these two discoveries must be connected.
Wheeler's belief is that Cincianus stole the ring from Silvianus and then had his own name inscribed upon it to throw off suspicion.
Then, when Silvianus finds out, he creates the cursed tablet against his foe.
But how did Cincianus get his hands on the ring in the first place?
It turns out that the main temple building was believed to be a large dormitory for sick pilgrims to recover there. And it's believed that Silvianus had his ring stolen while he was sick and battling illness there.
The site where the ring is found in Hampshire is about 80 miles from the Temple of Nodens, where that cursed tablet is discovered. Both are located on an important trade route known as the Devil's Highway.
It's also known that the Latin word rediviva was added to the tablet to basically say the curse shall go into effect again, meaning that Silvianus still didn't lose his thirst for revenge.
The ring goes on display in 2013 and can now be seen by visitors from all over the world.
And there's one final twist to this story. It turns out Wheeler had a little help putting the pieces together from an Oxford scholar of ancient languages named J.R.R. Tolkien.
Of course, Tolkien famously went on to write about a stolen cursed ring in his 1939 book, The Hobbit, and again in Lord of the Rings. Is this a coincidence, or was Silvianus's ring the inspiration? We will never know.